You're having a conversation with someone, whether it is a co-worker or a casual acquaintance, if matters not. You'll hear yourself about to say something and stop, not because you're hiding who you are, but because you've learned the difference between transparency and recklessness. Most people exhaust themselves explaining, defending, and revealing things that were never anyone else's business. You're about to understand why that stops today. Let me start with what drains more energy than almost anything else: over-explaining your decisions. Pay attention to yourself over the next few days. Notice how often you justify choices to people who have no stake in the outcome. Why you ordered what you ordered. Why you're leaving early. Why you structured your day a certain way. Each explanation is a small leak of authority, not to control others, but to govern yourself. Solomon observed that wise people guard their words because words create obligations. When you explain yourself to someone who didn't ask and doesn't need to know, you're unconsciously seeking their approval. You're making them a judge of decisions that are yours alone to make. Here's what this looks like at a get-together social event. Someone notices you're not drinking. The ungrounded response is a full explanation. "Oh, I'm trying to cut back. I've been overdoing it. Maybe later, we'll see." Listen to what's actually happening there. You're managing their potential judgment. You're signaling uncertainty about your own choice. You're explaining and asking for their approval. The grounded response is simpler. "I'm not drinking tonight." That's complete. It's not rude. It's not harsh. It's clear. And if they push, you just repeat it calmly. The difference isn't about dominating the conversation. It's about knowing that your decisions don't require a defense, unless you've actually harmed someone. Solomon wrote that even fools are thought wise when they keep silent. That's not about deception. It's about recognizing that explanation often creates problems that didn't exist. When you justify yourself without being asked, you introduce doubt into spaces where there was none. Stay with me here, because what I'm about to share next might seem like basic manners, but it's actually where most people sabotage their own peace. The second pattern that weakens you is apologizing when you've done nothing wrong. Track how many times today you say sorry for things that aren't offenses. Sorry for having a different opinion. Sorry for taking up space you're entitled to. Sorry for asking a question. Each false apology is a small betrayal of yourself. You're teaching people that your presence requires permission. Solomon understood that apology serves a sacred purpose, restoring relationships you've damaged. When you apologize for things that aren't wrongs, you dilute actual accountability. You make yourself smaller than you need to be. Here's how this plays out in a meeting. You have a different perspective than what's been said. The weakened response starts with, "Sorry, but I actually think we should." You just apologize for thinking. The grounded response is, "I think we should." Your perspective doesn't need permission to exist. Someone bumps into you in a hallway. If your automatic response is, "Sorry," pause on that. You apologized for occupying space you had every right to be in. The grounded response is silence, or "You're good." One acknowledges what happened. The other accepts false blame. This seems minor until you realize people are forming conclusions about you constantly. 10 unnecessary apologies, and you've trained them to expect your compliance. This isn't about becoming aggressive. It's about stopping the habit of shrinking yourself as a social reflex. Remember this moment, because what comes next will show you why guarding your words protects not just your peace, but your actual path forward. The third pattern is announcing your plans before they're real. Every time you share what you're thinking about doing before you've committed to doing it, you open the door to doubt that wasn't there before. Solomon warned against this repeatedly in Proverbs. The plans of the diligent lead to profit, but those who speak rashly come to poverty. Not because talking is evil, but because premature announcement invites premature judgment. You're considering a career change, starting something new, making a significant shift. The ungrounded instinct is to tell people early, to get input, to share your excitement. What actually happens? Most people, even those who care about you, will raise objections. Not because they want to hurt you, but because your movement makes them examine their own stillness. They'll find reasons it won't work. They'll question your timing. They'll suggest you wait. And if you're in the fragile early stage where you're still building certainty, their doubt will seep into yours. The grounded approach is to move in silence. You plan, you prepare, you take the first real steps, then you inform people of what's already in motion. I'm thinking about starting a business becomes I started a business. I might move becomes I'm moving next month. You're not hiding. You're just not asking for permission you don't need. Solomon's wisdom here is about understanding timing. Words spoken too soon create resistance. Words spoken after action create reality. This brings me to the fourth pattern, and this is where many people believe they're building connection when they're actually building vulnerability. Sharing your doubts and insecurities freely. You think this creates intimacy. Sometimes it does, with the right people at the right time. But most of the time, it creates a catalog of your weak points that gets referenced later when someone needs leverage. Every time you reveal what you're afraid of to someone who hasn't proven trustworthy over time, you're handing them a map to where you're undefended. This doesn't mean you never share. It means you share strategically with people who've demonstrated they won't weaponize what you've given them. Solomon wrote in Proverbs that a gossip betrays a confidence, but a trustworthy person keeps a secret. The wisdom is in discerning which one you're talking to before you reveal what's internal. In relationships, this is especially crucial. You share an insecurity, maybe about your progress in life, maybe something physical, whatever. The ungrounded mindset thinks vulnerability always brings people closer. Sometimes it does, but it also shows them exactly where to strike when conflict comes. And conflict comes in every relationship eventually. In heated moments, people reach for weapons. That insecurity you shared becomes one. Maybe if you actually accomplish something, I'd say. The words hurt precisely because you gave them the ammunition. This isn't about being closed. It's about understanding that access to your interior is earned, not owed. You reveal yourself in proportion to proven loyalty, not to assumed friendship. If talking marks you as manageable, what creates respect? Clarity without explanation, presence without performance, boundaries without apology. Solomon was known for his ability to listen more than he spoke. When he did speak, his words carried weight because they weren't constant. He didn't fill silence with explanation. He let truth stand on its own. Here's what this looks like practically. Someone asks how your weekend was. The oversharing response is a full report of everywhere you went, everyone you saw, every thought you had. The grounded response is, it was good. If they want to know more specifically, they'll ask specifically. If they don't follow up, they were just being polite. You don't perform for politeness. Someone at work asks what you're working on. The detailed response lists every project, every timeline, every challenge. The grounded response is a few things. If it affects their work, they'll ask specifically. If it's just conversation, you've given them nothing they don't need. Solomon called this guarding your mouth. It's not about secrecy. It's about recognizing that most questions aren't deep curiosity. They're social routine. You don't reveal yourself for routine. Let silence do its work. Most people are uncomfortable with silence, so they fill it with explanation, justification, more words. You don't have to. Someone makes a statement you disagree with. The reactive response is immediate defense, explanation, correction. The grounded response is silence. Just look at them. Let the statement exist. Let them sit with it. Often, they'll reconsider or soften their position without you saying anything. Silence isn't emptiness. It's space for clarity. This applies when someone questions your decision. Your old instinct might be to defend immediately. Your new instinct, just look at them. Don't defend. Don't explain. Let the question hang. Most times, they'll retreat or clarify because your silence communicated something true. You don't owe them justification. That's not arrogance. That's self-respect. Here's what you're protecting when you speak less: your plans. When people don't know what you're building, they can't discourage it before it exists. Your capacity. When people don't know your limits, they can't exploit them or use them to diminish you. Your fears. When people don't know what threatens you, they can't use it as leverage. Your doubts. When people don't know what you question about yourself, they can't reinforce those questions. Your emotional state. When people can't read your every reaction, they can't manipulate how you feel. This isn't about being closed off to everyone. This is about understanding that access to who you really are is a privilege earned through time and demonstrated character. Most people give access freely to anyone who seems friendly or interested. That's ungrounded. It assumes everyone has your best interest at heart when they haven't proven it. The grounded approach is observation first, trust second. You watch how people handle small things before you give them access to large things. You test character through time, not assumption. Solomon wrote that the prudent keep their knowledge to themselves, not to hoard it, but to protect it from being misused. So practically, how do you speak with wisdom starting today? Here's the framework. Make direct statements without justifying them. I'm doing this, not I'm doing this because if explanation is needed, they'll ask. Give minimal answers to broad questions. When someone asks a lot, you answer a little. Make them ask specifically if they want more. Be comfortable with silence. When someone probes and you don't want to answer, you don't have to fill the space. Just be present. They'll usually move on. Before you answer a question, understand why it's being asked. Why do you need to know? Isn't hostile. It's clarity. Default to sharing less. You can always say more later. You can never take back what's been said. This works immediately in normal conversation. Someone asks about your relationship status. The oversharing response is your full dating history and current situation. The grounded response is, I'm single, or I'm in a relationship. Complete answer. They want more, they'll ask more. Someone asks about your career plans. The unguarded response reveals everything you're hoping for, doubting, planning. The grounded response is, I'm focused on what I'm doing now. True and uninformative about your next moves. Someone asks what you're insecure about. You can just say, I don't discuss that without explanation. It's a boundary, not a wall. This isn't coldness. This is wisdom about what serves you and what serves others. Solomon understood that words have consequences. They create obligations, expectations, and opportunities for misunderstanding. The fewer unnecessary words, the fewer unnecessary problems. Here's where you've been. Every time you explained yourself to someone who had no right to judge you, every time you apologized for existing in space you belonged in, every time you announced plans before they were solid, every time you shared your interior with people who hadn't earned access, you weakened your own position. Not because you're bad at this, but because no one taught you the alternative. This changes now. From today, you speak with intention. You make statements without justifying them to people who don't deserve explanation. You stop revealing plans before they're in motion. You stop sharing fears with people who haven't proven trustworthy. You stop apologizing for taking up space you're entitled to. And you notice what happens. People won't know how to categorize you anymore. They're used to extraction. They're used to you volunteering everything. When you don't, some will push, some will test, and you'll stay grounded because you understand now. What you don't say can't be twisted. Solomon survived court intrigue, political complexity, and the weight of leadership by knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. You'll navigate modern life the same way, not by hiding who you are, but by protecting what's yours to protect. Save this video to re-watch again later. This is the kind of insight dark psychology channels would charge you for. I'm giving it to you because the best way to neutralize manipulation is to raise the intelligence of the entire room. Subscribe if you want more. No paywall, just wisdom. And check out these suggested videos to continue the journey and step into the next level in the Solomonic wisdom.